Functions are just a group of instructions. Some functions are already built into Lua or Roblox, and we call these methods. An example of this is the print statement, which we've been using. This is a method. Another example is task.wait with parentheses, and whatever you put inside the parentheses is how many seconds the script is going to wait. Like we say wait 7, and then we play, the script is going to wait 7 seconds, and then after 7 seconds have passed, we'll see it in the output, you see? And these are both examples of methods, and as you can see, methods always have parentheses, whether they have something in them or not. For example, if you don't put anything in this one, the task.wait is just going to wait as fast as possible and then prints. You might also see just regular wait. This is also a method that can be used, but task.wait is the newer version of that. So just get used to doing task.wait. These are both functions, and since they're both built in by default, they are considered methods, and we can make our own functions. The reason we use functions is for instructions that we want to use over and over again, but we don't want to write it out every time. The way you make a function is you write local function and then the name of the function. Then you tell the code to run like this. And I'll go over this in more detail later, but in general, just know there are 2 steps to functions. Inside of here, we can write out the list of instructions that we want this function to follow. And then here's where we tell the code to actually run the function. You can think of this as making a recipe versus actually making the cake. Let's say we wanted to make a chocolate cake. First, we have to write the list of instructions on how to make that cake, and that's what this part is for. You can think of making the function as making a recipe. And then once you have that recipe, you can make that cake as many times as you'd like. And this is this part, which is running the code. And I'll go over that all in a lot more detail. Now you and I are going to be creating a function. We're going to need this output window, and just assume we're going to need every window that I've shown you so far in the future. Just have them out. They're good windows, this explorer, the properties, and output. So now you can follow along with me. If you have anything else in this world besides the spawn location and the base plate, you can get rid of that, but it's fine. We won't be in this world today. We're just going to be inside the script. So add a new script in server script service and then rename it functions practice, like that. We're going to delete the stuff in the script, and I want you to add a comment that's going to act as our heading to let us know what the code does, and that comment is going to say prints your favorite food. So to do that, write 2 dashes to make it a comment, and then prints your favorite food. Let's go over the naming of functions. They're very similar to naming a variable, pretty much exactly the same. When you're naming a function, you should use camel case. It should be something related to what the function does. To make a function, just write local function, and then whatever you want the function to be called. Since this function is going to print our favorite food, let's just name it print food in camel case, and then you need the parentheses when you're making the function. Now when you hit enter, you should notice that there's an end right here and that it indented over. If there isn't an end here, just skip a line and write END right here so that it looks like mine, but it should auto-complete it. If you don't have the end, it won't work. The end is important. This is all important. Make sure you have everything. Congratulations, you just made a function. This is the recipe part I was talking to you earlier. So in here is where we write all the instructions. Everything that we write between this line and this line is what the function is going to do. Every time we call this function into action, whatever we write inside here, the code will run. Whenever you see an end, that means that this is a block. What does a block entail? It just means whenever we write something inside of the block from here to here, it must be indented. You see how it auto-indented here? So let's say we want a function that prints A, then it prints B, then it prints C. Notice how these are all indented because they're all part of this block. And then if we want to say print D or something, whatever we write here, it's not indented anymore because only the stuff inside the blocks get indented. See how it starts here, ends here, and everything inside gets indented. But anything outside of it doesn't get indented. Even if you write something before, print E, see, it doesn't get indented. So whenever you see an end, just know, oh, now I know that there's a block, and then you can find where it starts, and now you know everything in there needs to be indented. Another topic I want to cover now is the concept of scope. And what I mean by this is we declare the variable here and then we use it here. And that's okay because they're in the same block. You can think of this whole script as a giant block. Just like the function was a block, the entire script is a block. And I'll visualize that for you. This whole script is a block. We declared this variable inside of the script block. That means that the whole entire script can see that variable right here. That's why we can print it out, because this print statement is also part of the script block. So the script knows it exists. Let me show you another scenario and you tell me if it'll work out. I have this scenario now where you declare the variable inside of the function and then we try to print it out inside of that same function. Let me visualize it for you and tell me if you think it'll work. So this is the scenario we have. Let me know if you think it'll work or not and why. So this actually will work just fine because they're in the same block. And remember I told you when you declare a variable, you can only use it within that block. So we declared it in the function block and we printed it in the function block. So that works. If you're ever confused about whether or not you can use a variable, this variable was declared in the function block. So all of this has access to that variable. So remember that with this next example. Now we declared the variable inside of the function block and try to print it outside of it in the script block. Is this going to work? This red line probably gave it away, but this is not going to work. Since we declared the variable inside this function block and then we printed it in this overall script block, this script block has no idea of what's going on in here. It has no idea that a variable was declared in here. Because remember how I told you, when you declare something, it only is declared within that block. So see what has access to it? We can just, oh, this whole entire block has access to it. We can use it as much as we want within this area, but outside of that area, that variable does not exist. Okay, so I'll do one more and then hopefully you'll understand the whole concept of scope. This is a bit of a tricky one, but do you think it's going to work or not? Believe it or not, this is actually perfectly fine to do, and I'll show you why. Although we declared a variable in the script block, the function block can still see anything outside of it, and I'll show you why. Remember I said when you declare a variable, everything within that block can see it. So let's go ahead and draw our little squiggly line. All of this has access to it. The whole entire script block has access to it, and that encompasses the function block too. So the function block can see anything that was declared out here. Our whole entire script can see the variable, including this function which is inside the script. Hopefully that's all it is to scope. I know it's a little confusing, but you'll get it the more you code. So back to what we were doing before. We're making a function that prints our favorite food, and inside of this function block, we're going to tell the function what we want to do. And I said I want to make it print out our favorite food. So you fill it out with your favorite food and see if you can figure out how to do that, and then I'll show you in a second with mine. So all you have to do is right here where it's indented, write print parentheses, you know how to print, and your favorite food as a string. Remember the two quotations to make it a string. I don't really have a favorite food. I like a lot of different foods. I'll just say pizza, because can't go wrong with pizza. So this is like us making the recipe. If we play it right now and look at the output, nothing gets printed out. Because like I told you, that's just the recipe we made. That's like making a recipe to make a cake and then being like, wait, the cake hasn't been made yet. Yeah, the recipe doesn't make the cake. You actually have to make the cake yourself. And the way we do that in code is by telling the function to run. The way we make the function run is we just write the name of the function, which can be found right here in yellow, for might be a different color for you. And then we write the name after the end. So print food, and then the parentheses, you need to keep it. You can just copy and paste exactly what you see right here. So this is like making the recipe, and this is actually making that cake. Go ahead and play it, see what happens. Now the output printed pizza. What this entire thing does is basically say, hey, whenever I write print food, I want you to do whatever's inside of here. So the script's going to see, oh, you said print food. What's inside of here? Print pizza. So that's how the script is thinking right now. And remember that the scripts always go from top to bottom. So if we try to call this function before the function is made, it doesn't know what it is. And that makes sense because you can't just tell somebody, be like, hey, make that cake with that cake recipe that I made. And then they're going to be like, you never made a cake recipe. I'm like, yeah, but in the future I will, so just do it. No, it doesn't make sense. You gotta make the recipe first. Now you can print out pizza. If this didn't work out for you, make sure that the print statement is within these two lines of code, the one where we make the function and the end. And if you're still getting an error, make sure that you wrote a string in here. It should turn a color, maybe green like it did for me. And it's a string because it's surrounded by these two quotation marks. And make sure that when you call the function, it is exactly as it is when you made the function. You write like print food with a lowercase. It's not going to work. It has to be exactly the same. Don't forget the two parentheses either. Alright, that's all. God bless.